You're welcome back. Now, Nigeria's cost of living is reshaping the business landscape, production costs, purchasing power. And so this morning we'll be unpacking the cost of living in Nigeria from a business and skills development perspective with Professor Vincent Onodugu. He's a professor of business management, University of Nigeria, Nsukka. He's also a human and organization development consultant, senior faculty member, UNN and ESUT Business School. Good morning, you're welcome to the program.
Good morning, it's my pleasure to be here.
It's a pleasure to have you as well.
Yeah.
Now, how would you characterize the current cost of living and its ripple effect on Nigeria's business environment?
Well, the cost of living has been very astronomically, very, very high. What it takes you to live normally, averagely in Nigeria, has gone so high that it takes you about what it will take you to live comfortably in Nigeria in terms of basic necessities of life: food, shelter, transport, energy, all of those things. What it will take you to live today it will take you to multiply your income from 2010 till now about 5 times. And unfortunately, incomes have been steady for over this period. And then what it takes you to, the expenses have gone up so high, and it's been very, very challenging. Very, very challenging that for the businesses, for instance, you notice that most businesses are not breaking even because, what triggers businesses actually? The consumption, that is the demand, effective demand, people's willingness to purchase goods at the prevailing price, rates. You see, when the production cost is high, it will dovetail to high increases in prices, and most buyers will not be able to pay that high prices. So the issue is that businesses are struggling, and the high cost of inputs of production has also made the cost of doing business so high that you have to increase the prices. For you to make profit, you have to also sell at the cost of production. You have to add a margin. So all of those things dovetail. So businesses are suffering, individuals are suffering collectively in Nigeria, and that's why the average citizen believes that the government is not doing well, because all the macroeconomic stability they are flaunting, most of them does not trickle down to to improve welfare of the citizenry. So that's the bottom line.
All right. So if we compare the previous years and now, what would you have to say? And what are the factors contributing to all this high cost of living in Nigeria?
Fine. For instance, let's look at it as at 2024. We have the inflation rate, which is a major cause of this high cost of living. The inflation rate is 34% as at last year. It's been rebased. We rebased our GDP. It's a technical time trying to rejig our way of calculating increment in prices. So we're rejigging. We are now 24% inflation rate. Now, when prices of goods are increasing, when the income is stagnant, it will now deplete your purchasing power. What your money used to buy, get you in the market. If you look for bread that used to cost 300 naira, now it costs for 1,200 naira. Essentially, what happens is that you can now, what you used to buy 5 loaves of bread can now purchase 2 loaves of bread. So the purchasing power comes down. So inflation is a major causative factor. Then the insecurity, most of our, the food production has come down. So because of farmers clashes, people are no more going to farm to produce. So we now import most of what we consume. So that insecurity is driving low production, making much money, purchasing few goods. So those things are increasing the cost of living. Again, we are import dependent, mostly. We are consumption society. Most of what we consume, we import. Because we import and our exchange rate has declined. That is, in other words, Naira has been devalued. So what Naira used to purchase in the past Of course, the exchange rate is now 1,000 on average, 1,500 naira per dollar. So the prices of what imported goods are now high. All of those things are jacking up the cost of production. So these are the factors. And then the cost of inputs, like I said, for average manufacturer, the cost of inputs have also gone up. So all of those things are the things that makes for increments in the cost of living.
All right. So you talked about Nigeria rebasing and all the GDP, but then this morning, the World Bank gave a report of how bad the GDP is and the current poverty state of Nigeria. But federal government countered that information that it is false. So are they saying that the National Bureau of Statistics is wrong? And how does this translate in our daily lives, even in the market? What's the reality?
No, listen, regardless of what is being said, we are living witnesses. We all live in Nigeria, that the cost of living is very high. GDP, all of those things are semantics. GDP is the value you place on the collective goods and services produced in a particular economy within a given period of time, usually 1 year. That's when you place the value. So there are various indicators, there are various indices or various index used in measuring the GDP. So that is aside. We know that we've been struggling as an economy for quite a number of years now. So in the reality, the cost of living is very high. Look at all the components. What does it take you to get a flat, a 2-bedroom flat? In the past, between 200 to 400,000 naira. Now it is almost as high as between 800 to 1.2 million to get 2-bedroom flats in a city like Enugu. So it's not something the average citizen there, you don't need to convince the person otherwise. So actually the cost of living has gone high. The inflation, the prices of things are there. What it takes you to get a basket of tomatoes, a banana, oranges, are all there. The prices of things have all gone up. So that's why you don't also blame people who sell, because they're not sell cheaper than what they purchased. And that's why the cost of production has been so high, because the cost of production is high because the component inputs with which we produce with have all gone up. So the chances are that the tendency is for the thing to dovetail to high cost of production. Cost of production would dovetail to high prices of commodities. So that's the bottom line. That's the situation, regardless of the contention as to what the contention is. Usually the poverty rate. World Bank is saying that we have 126 million people have gone into poverty. That's also a consequence of high cost of living, because when people's incomes are steady and what they use to make a living have all gone up, the prices of commodities have all gone up, the chances are that most people will go into poverty and all that. So it's here with us. So the reality is that things are not as before, and we cannot wish it away, no matter what government says.
Right. Now, from what you've said, the rising operational costs has deeply affected businesses and also citizens alike. Now, to what extent would you say that this current economic climate has exposed weaknesses in Nigeria's business management structures?
Well, the truth is that this cost of living has shown a lot of weaknesses in the policies of government. Policies of government should encourage businesses. And how do you encourage businesses? By providing a credible climate, a favorable climate for them to operate. One major thing we need to give to businesses in Nigeria is security. If we make our environment secured, at least farmers can go normally. You see, because our environment is insecure, the cost of doing business have gone up high. Even to move to villages, people who have production facilities in villages, people who have poultry farms in rural communities, most of them don't go easily, leaving most of their goods unattended to. People don't go to farms again. So because of it, then energy costs. The withdrawal of subsidy has increased energy costs, has also increased transportation costs. All of those things are component costs that affect businesses. In fact, if we want to turn around our economy, what we need to do is to support businesses. Businesses are the entities that will create job, create income, and produce goods and services. So the trigger, what we need to change our economy for good is to make the climate very favorable for these businesses. But the current situation has made it difficult for them. One, insecurity I've mentioned. The second one is infrastructure deficit. Sometimes when you want to do business, you are going to provide your own energy, because of course, you know that the one we get from EEDC or from former NEPA is not enough. You know, there's most of the times you find the grid failing to operate. So most of the time you have to have alternative source of power, energy, and it's very expensive. You have to provide the roads are not well taken care of, although there's improvements over the years, but it's not yet there. You provide your own water, provide all the components. So when you, as an individual, you are going to be the one, not only farm, you're going to be the one to get your own electricity. You're going to want to provide roads for yourself, retire the roads. So the cost, these things are built into the business costs. So the cost of doing business in Nigeria is so high. And because it's so high, it's difficult for us to break margin. And you know the world has gone global. A producer in Nigeria is also competing with a producer in Italy. He's also competing with a producer elsewhere in the world, because they sell, Amazon. You know, there are all kinds of organizations that can sell online, e-marketing. That's the digital marketing. That's the current trend now. So you're competing with the global. So when production is taken in China, Chinese will produce the same goods and sell at cheaper rates. Even with all the transportation costs, logistics costs, they will sell cheaper rates. So we cannot compete with this because the cost of doing business is so high. So insecurity, infrastructure. Then we're talking about policies. Sometimes government policies fluctuates. For the most part, the monetary policy has been been tight. Interest rate in Nigeria, as at the last count, was 27%. A monetary policy rate, that is the rate which CBN lent to banks before banks lent to individual businesses, 27%. It's not done anywhere in the world. So nobody can borrow money from commercial banks, from money deposit banks, for anything less than 33 or 35%. And when you put cost of capital is 35%, put other component costs, it's difficult. We cannot be globally competitive. And sometimes our policies, there was a time government banned the importation of dairy products, with most of these food supplies. So local people took initiative, because businesses take decisions based on the prevailing policy. So because of that policy, people went and invested in farming. But no sooner afterwards, they changed it. So when your policies are very inconsistent, the chances are that it will affect hot businesses. So I've mentioned insecurity. I've mentioned infrastructure issues. I've also mentioned, policy. Of course, you know that government is jacking up revenue, taxes, and the taxes is normal because we're undertaxed as a nation. But then it should be gradualistic. It shouldn't jumpstart it and all that. So that all of them, because we're also coming from a recession. So you have to be gradualistic. So you have a situation where you have insecure environments, which is hurting businesses. You have a situation where it is infrastructure. You have to provide your own infrastructure because of deficits. Because if you must do business, you must have those things. You also have fluctuating government policies, which includes policy reversals, which also includes taxation and so on, multiple taxation. People, if you go out there, people will just get you and you keep paying taxes, and all of those things will affect business environments.
But is there a way that small and medium enterprises can navigate these inflationary pressures without, compromising their sustainability? Is there a way it can work?
Well, as individual organizations, first, that's why government is there. My own proposal and the proposal of most meaningful analysts is that government should stop doing business. Government should create enabling environments for businesses to thrive. Must create an enabling environment for businesses to thrive. When government do business, you can look at almost the sector gradually. Government used to be in banking, but they've left banking. Government used to be in telecommunication, they've left telecommunication. Even in energy, oil and gas, gradually. So the issue is that it has been found in aviation. We used to have Nigerian Airways. Almost all the sector. Gradually, government is beginning to leave. What government should do is to become a referee, create an enabling environment for businesses to thrive. And once that is done, so individual businesses cannot on itself, because they are trying to do what government should be doing for them, that's why their cost of doing business have gone up considerably. So government needs to, of course, in security, for instance, how would they do security? Because they are getting CCTV camera. They are going to get intelligence reports when they want to move. If you have expatriates working for you, your cost of security alone will be so high that you'll be wondering what is in it for me. You know, so if you have for instance, an expatriate working for you, you have to get security, you have to pay police, you have to also have gadgets, you have to CCTV camera, you have to get intelligence reports. All of those things add up to business because they are not charity organization. Whatever they're doing in the course of doing business will also come into business. So government should increase security. Stop playing politics with security. Declare it emergency. State of emergency and security, create enabling environments. The policies, whether monetary policies, whether physical policies, are all government issues. Even the land tenure system, people cannot buy land and have their head and close their eyes and be at peace with it. You buy land today, if you're buying from community, for instance, somebody will sell land, another person will sell. So even to have land and C of O in most of these states is another issue completely. So all of those components are the things that government needs to handle. I've always proposed, for instance, that we need to have industrial clusters. For instance, you look at 9 Mile, all the food and beverage industry, their major raw material is water, clean water. And the aquifer of 9 Mile axis, the aquifer, that's why you have MBL there. You have 7-Up, you have Coca-Cola, and all of those things. Aquifer of that 9 Mile is the best. The aquifer is the water layout of the best in the whole world. So why not build industrial cluster? By industrial cluster, you now get, for instance, all the adjoining communities, including my Abo, Eke, Ebe, Ngwo, all of those places. Get them. Get the lands from them. Government will negotiate land, community, pay them off. Get it. Calibrate it into industrial sizes, maybe 20 plots or so, and have C of O ready for investors. And that cluster, you make dedicated power supply, maximum demand supply. Make sure that, of course, there's water there. Make sure there's security. Put police posts, put cameras, CCTV camera. Ensure the places have all it takes so that an industrialist or a venture capitalist, whoever comes in, just buys the C of O. You will not have anything to do with Obone Chago. You have nothing to do with any community issues. Just go there and start your business. And you have everything at your beck and call. You see, if you do that, you are encouraging businesses. Give them tax holidays, for instance, for a while, so that they can operate and be comfortable before they start paying taxes. Because they will pay per year eventually. They pay income, profit, tax, and so on and so forth. So if you do that, government will have been helping businesses. So essentially, answer your question directly, individual businesses do not have what it takes to be able to improve their lots. That's where there's government. Government is there to create this enabling environment, tar the roads, bring water supply, create security, provide all. That's what we call infrastructure. Make it available for them. You see, there was the Enugu Onitsha road. Government devised something very interesting, very, 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 very good. That they said the policy they called tax to road initiative, MTN. Instead of taxes you're supposed to pay, you take part of your taxes, but the government will approve of it. It started with Dangote, approve of it. If Dangote is using a particular road, because businesses are the entities that will create job for you, your citizenry. Because these things have ripple effect. If your citizenry have jobs, they will have income to be able to buy goods and services. They will have less idle hands to be able to do all the things we're not comfortable with. Because of high cost of living and unemployment and poverty, some of these things we are all not comfortable with are happening in our environments. So the truth is that if government encourages businesses, like the tax to road initiative, use part of your tax, you would have paid government to do road, but you get approval. So at the end of the year, when you are supposed to pay taxes, you minus the one the government has approved for you to do that road. That's what we call road to tax initiative. It is that initiative MTN is using to be able to tar the roads from Onitsha to Enugu. So you see, that kind of initiative will help businesses. So if you do that and create a environment for businesses to thrive, then they will produce and sell. When they produce, they employ people. When they employ people, they pay people. People have an income, and they use that income to go to market to buy. If nobody buys whatever you produce, you won't sell. And because you won't sell, and so it's a ripple effect. So if you want to really turn around the economy, any economy, empower the citizenry. Let the citizenry have income. If they don't have income, they can't go to market. And let me also show you some of the challenges we also have in the Nigerian economy. 10% of the citizenry, I'm being magnanimous actually, 10% of the citizenry control 90% of the income. Why 90% of people manage 10% of the income? I'm quite generous. So that inequality. So you find out that people who have more than they need are few. A majority of the people are struggling far below. They have less than they really need. So if you want to change any economy, create a situation where those majority of the people, particularly civil servants, average income earners, artisans, and so on and so forth, once you create a policy that will put money in their hands, they will go to market to buy. And when they go to market to buy, they trigger production. Production increases, employment increases, income is generated, goods are produced, and that's how economy is kick-started. When you talk about recession is a situation where there's a low demand, people do not demand, companies cannot produce to their maximum capacity. And you can't produce to maximum capacity, your cost of production will become high, and so on. It begins to go down. You begin to, sack people, and when you sack people, they don't have income, and so on and so forth. Most of them now start doing all sorts of things to survive. That's why the thuggery, insecurity. Part of the insecurity is not only strictly from foreign invaders or terrorists or whatever, or bandits alone. Internal people who must survive are beginning to increase the ranks. Some of this kidnapping now taking place is no more people who are coming from wherever. Some of them are internally orchestrated and so on and so forth. People must survive. The law of nature is survival, self-preservation. That's the first law of nature. And so, for people to survive, it's not excusable. That's not a reason for people to do crime. But these are some of the explanations. When you have idle hands, especially young people, they do all kinds of things when they don't have meaningful work to do. So that's it.
All right. Before we go, now federal government is about to issue sovereign sukuk, that's Islamic bond. So what are your thoughts on that? What apart from that, what also is your thought on public-private partnership when it comes to the economy?
Well, let's start with public-private partnership. That is PPP. That's an arrangement that is required. Incidentally, I'm the chairman of, there's a committee, a policy committee formed by my university to be able to, so I'm the chairing that committee on PPP, to do a policy. The underlying, necessity, the underlying this thing is that most government institutions lack the expertise and lack the commitment. There's this feeling, there's this perception that government work is everybody's work. Oluoyibo. That's the mentality. It's not your father's one, it's not your own. So that pride of ownership, the sense of ownership is lacking. So people do it anyhow. So, but when you bring, that's why public institutions, whether in Nigerian Airways, when it was, as it was then called, all of those institutions that used to own, like NITEL of the then NITEL and all that. So, if we say NNPC is also going, the ring bell is being wrong. Now they are going and all that. In fact, come to that, think about it. If I were to government, before you, because Dangote is taking a mini monopoly status, and it's not good for competition. What makes prices stable and what makes for effective allocation in a capitalist economy is competition. The most potent English word is competition. You cannot be your best unless you find yourself in an atmosphere of competition, actually. That deregulation should be thorough and detailed. In other words, if I were government, before I allow Dangote, you should sell those refineries, sell it to IOCs, international oil companies. Let them have at least 4 refineries in Nigeria so that there'll be competition. It will be a mini monopoly. You can't be expecting importers to be competing with Dangote. So, and it's not good for an institution to operate at a mini monopoly status. So once you create that environment, there's a competition. So what led us to this is PPP. Government institutions, because they lack the expertise and the commitment, the ownership, pride of ownership to run enterprises the way it should be. We need private sector expertise. We need private sector capital. Also, government lacks the capital to do so many things. Like let's take an example, an institution like university. University have a lot of need for accommodation for each students. We are heavily, they scramble for accommodation. I was one time a student, dean of student affairs. So there's a scramble. So it's oversubscribed. So you can get private sector to invest in that place and provide those services at with some level of regulation. So that's PPP arrangements. So what's the next question?
All right, I think we'll have to skip that next question because of time.
Okay.
So thank you very much, Professor Vincent Onodugo. Thank you for joining us this morning.
It's my pleasure.
Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
All right, that is where we end that conversation on unpacking the cost of living in Nigeria, business and skills development perspective. And we just spoke to the Professor of Business Management, UNN. Thank you for staying with us. Signature Morning will still continue.